Hockey insider Chris Johnston joins us now to talk trade bait. And Chris, last time around, JT Miller and Elias Pettersson share top spot on the board. Miller does remain at the top, but Pettersson has slid down to 10. So what do you make of this?
Well, really what it is a reflection of how those trade discussions have evolved in the last couple of weeks since that original trade bait board. And where we're at right now is the Canucks have seemed to focus a little bit more on a possible JT Miller move. And this is not an easy trade, obviously. I mean, his name has been out there now for 6 or 7 weeks, and still they haven't found a deal that makes sense from the Vancouver end. And the reason Elias Pettersson still is relatively high on the board is because while the focus has been on Miller, I don't think we can entirely at this stage rule out a deal involving Pettersson, who does not have no trade protection, which is something Miller has in his contract. Would, in that case, maybe be a little bit easier to move, although both of them have pretty sizable cap hits that come with some challenges. But, certainly Vancouver seems a little more focused on a Miller move, but they're still having some discussions on Pettersson too, and that's why these are two of the biggest names on this board.
Okay, I see. And we have watched the losses continue to mount for the Canucks, and Rick Tocchet's frustration, it's clearly growing. Chris, do you get the sense the Canucks could be pressured into making a move pretty soon?
Well, if there's one good thing, they've got Jim Rutherford atop this organization from a hockey operations standpoint. And he's seen just about everything over the years, won multiple Stanley Cups with different organizations. I think that he is able to help maybe get through that pressure, but there's no question it's there. I mean, you can see it on the faces of the players and their body language. And of course, as you mentioned, with Rick Tocchet. And so, that's a dynamic that's kind of unique to this situation. It's been so public. So much speculation, so much discussion about potential major changes to this dressing room, all the while the team has not won consecutive games since December 1st. And so certainly there is that element, but I think there's just as much pressure not to make a bad deal. You can make a trade, but if it's going to be one that sets the organization back years, that's not going to help either. So I think that with an experienced front office, they can weather that to a degree, but down in the dressing room, in the trenches with the players and coaches, it's certainly taking a toll.
Well, especially being on the outside looking in as far as a playoff position goes. Now, a couple other Canadian teams, the Jets and Leafs, both looking for help up the middle. Plenty of centers on this trade bait board, CJ. Which names make the most sense for Winnipeg and Toronto?
Well, when it comes to the Leafs, I think they've been pretty clear about their desire here to add a center. Almost any of these centers make sense. Look right near the top. Brock Nelson, Yanni Gourde, both players that are on rental type of situations. If their teams or when their team's ready to move them, I think are guys that could make some sense for the Leafs. The Jets conversation is a little more nuanced. They had Adam Lowry up as their second line center prior to his injury earlier this week. And because that had been going so well, albeit a very limited sample size, I think the Jets maybe have they have open minds, I'll call it, about whether they need a center. Maybe there's an opportunity to bring in a winger if Lowry's back. And of course, his injury also complicates things. And so the Jets position, I think, is a little less clear ahead of March 7th. But, any center name on this board, I didn't mention Ryan Strome, Nick Bjugstad. The full list of them are on the Leafs watch list. Those are players they're keeping tabs on. And, as we get closer to the deadline itself, and I think it's clear the exact market they're working with, they're going to try to get the best one available because the Leafs are looking to make an impact at this deadline.
Okay, well, we'll continue to check in with you, CJ, as we approach the trade deadline on March 7th.